Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sarah Monroe, Admissions Manager at the Lake Forest Graduate School. I will be joined by Kate Colbert, Director of Marketing and Alumni Relations momentarily, and she will serve as today's moderator. If you have any questions along the way, please type them into the question box on the right-hand side of your computer screen. Today's webinar will help you answer the question, how do you make the most of your MBA experience? We will spend most of our time today with a panel discussion followed by Q&A. For those attendees who would like to enroll in the Leadership MBA program at LFGSM in the coming months, I'd like to remind you that our next opportunity to start is on June 25th. The summer term will kick off with an online class called Executive Success Skills, followed in September by classes of your choice, which can be taken in face-to-face formats at our Lake Forest or Schaumburg campuses, or online if you prefer that learning style. The school offers a great deal of flexibility in scheduling options through which our students can choose a combination of classes that meet on weeknights, Saturdays, weekdays, or online. At LFGSM, you don't have to choose a particular schedule or track, for example. You don't have to exclusively be a Schaumburg campus student or an online student. We encourage you to customize the program to your needs, travel schedules, and preferences. At this time, I'd like to invite Kate Colbert to talk with us about the Lake Forest MBA program. To set some context for today's panel discussion, as I mentioned before, Kate is the Director of Marketing and Alumni Relations here at the Graduate School, and she also graduated in 2007 from our MBA program. Welcome, Kate.
Thanks, Sarah.
So, Kate, before we get into our panel discussion on how to make the most of the MBA experience, I would like to ask you a few questions about the Lake Forest MBA program overall. We know that there are many reasons why people decide to earn the MBA. For instance, many may want to increase their marketability, many may want to take their career to a new level, and some just love to learn. There are obviously lots of great reasons, but we all know that these are challenging economic times. How do you know when it's the right time to make that investment?
I think that's a good question, Sarah. I would say that in this competitive environment that we're finding ourselves in with so much change happening at people's organizations and industries, it's more important than ever to be a well-rounded business person. As a graduate business school, Lake Forest Graduate School is continuously interacting and doing research with a variety of corporations in the Chicago area and beyond across the country. And we look at everyone from folks who work for Abbott to ITW, Allstate to Motorola. So large or small, no matter the company or industry, we're seeing a really common thread. And here's what we're seeing. We're seeing that most companies are going through some type of reorganization to reignite growth and innovation and to be more competitive in a challenging economic environment with global competition. So I would say the economy has an impact on what's happening at companies and the moves that individuals are making regarding their own career and educational investments, but global competition is impacting that significantly as well. My guess is that this is true for most of the companies of the folks who are on our call today. Companies are really changing their organizational charts and taking a fresh look at their talent, and I think the criteria to succeed has really changed in the last few years. So what companies are telling us that they want and need is different today than what we used to hear. The competitive landscape has changed, and we're hearing that really clearly from the companies that we do corporate work with and the companies that represent the students in our MBA program. They're telling us that they're looking for people who are not just strong in one functional area, like being a great scientist or a good marketer. They're looking for people who can be innovators, people who are change managers, strong mentors who inspire great performance from others. Companies are really looking for employees and contractors, and I think it's important to consider a redefinition of job here because not everyone works an employee 9-to-5 job, but a lot of folks are working contract relationships with organizations. Companies are really looking for talent who have broad perspective and deep skills and who are more nimble than ever.
That's an interesting point. Can you elaborate a bit more?
Sure. So I think it really used to be that if you were really great in your function, so for example, you were a really talented engineer, you were a great salesperson, very successful numbers, you were a strong IT person, technically superior, a strong HR person, really great at leading the talent in your organization, that was good enough. And my guess is that a lot of the folks who are joining us on the phone today are what we would call functional experts, people who are deep experts in one area, probably the area in which they've spent many years of their career and or the area in which they did their initial undergraduate or initial graduate study. If you were a strong functional expert in any particular area up until very recently, I think you were pretty safe. You could see what it took to rise in your function. It was clear, but not necessarily easy to make it to the executive suite. So a strong technical person, for example, in an IT department could make it to the CIO position. But with all the disruption in the economy and companies trying to be more nimble, a lot of technology changes forcing companies to have to be able to move products to market more quickly, certain qualities are now more in demand than they used to be. What we're finding through our research is that organizations want broad thinkers and strong leaders, and that's what we help our students become here at Lake Forest Graduate School.
The phrase broad thinkers and strong leaders is used a lot at Lake Forest. In fact, it's our official tagline. What exactly do you mean by broad thinkers and strong leaders?
So broad thinkers, strong leaders is really about seeing the big picture, about how to see the big picture at your company and in your industry. It's about going beyond your functional area. We have panelists who are joining us today who have really great strengths and deep expertise in particular functional areas that they're taking beyond that through our program. So it's taking an opportunity to step out of your role as a marketer, an engineer, a scientist, an IT person, and take a look at the whole department, the whole company, your whole industry, and figure out what are the opportunities and what are the risks outside of just what you do every day. It's also, being a broad thinker and a strong leader is also about being able to effectively lead and influence positive change at every level of your organization. So up, down, and across the org chart, and really great leaders do that. I think companies are also looking for four sort of general things that we think fit under our philosophy of broad thinkers, strong leaders. First, they're looking for who has the flexibility to adjust and thrive and the agility to take on different roles and responsibilities as new strategies have to be executed at their organization. Secondly, I think that companies are asking, in times of uncertainty, who are the folks who can not only embrace change, but who can be change leaders? Change is really difficult, it's scary, we're all averse to it. Companies are saying, who can sort of jump over, we have a faculty member here who talks about that the first stage of change is really scary, and he calls it the valley of death. Who are those leaders who can get through that valley of death and lead their employees and their peers to really embrace that change? And three, who are aligning work to their strategy of the organization, or better yet, who's capable of creating new strategies that are going to grow their company? So status quo is not, I would say most C-suite leaders are not settling for status quo. They want to know who's going to help us grow our organization and be something bigger and better than we were last year. And fourthly, what we're hearing from companies that really aligns with our thinking around broad thinkers and strong leaders is companies are asking, who are the effective collaborators? Who are the people who not only understand the point of view of their department, but can see the perspective from every other department? Who are the marketing people who understand the objections that IT or finance might make to a project, and who are the engineers who work really well with the scientists? So as I mentioned before, the program at Lake Forest is really all about giving professionals that breadth of perspective to be able to work effectively with all the departments, that perspective that's needed to see the big picture and to make more meaningful impact at their companies.
Thanks, Kate. And now I will turn it over to you for today's discussion on making the most of the MBA experience.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. In case any of you are just joining us on the phone right now, my name is Kate Colbert, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Alumni Relations, and I'm also an alum of the MBA program at Lake Forest Graduate School. So before we get started, I'd like to explain the format of today's webinar. We've developed a list of questions that should help answer the question, how do I get the most from my MBA experience? However, if you do have a follow-up question or need clarification from one of our panelists, I encourage you to participate during our time with you today. You will have an option, an open Q&A period at the end of today's session, but you can also pose questions as we go along. So if you have a question, feel free as it comes to you to type your question in the question box located on the right side of your computer screen. Today we're going to tackle the big question, how do I get the most out of my MBA? And to help answer that question, I'm joined by three panelists, Valerie Culver, Michael Mann, and Sherry Wiseman. At this time, panelists, I'm going to ask if you could introduce yourselves. We'll go around the table and ask, please share your name, your job title, and company, and your affiliation with the school, and tell us a little bit about why you chose us. So we're going to go ahead and start with Valerie.
Good afternoon. I'm Valerie Culver, and I'm Director of Marketing and Corporate Communications at the Illinois Hospital Association, and it's my pleasure to be here today. I'm just finishing my third year here at Lake Forest Graduate School of Management. I started in December '09. Actually, it was September '09, and the reason that I made the change is I was working at the time in December of 2008, decided that I needed a change. I really wanted to go into something different. I'd always wanted to get my MBA, but didn't feel that I could do it. Was afraid for a lot of reasons because I've been out of school for a couple of years. But then I went to my boss, and she encouraged me to do that. I signed up, and I knew things were changing where I was working. I had taken a job and moved into this area, and things did change real quickly, and so I found myself without a job. And then I thought, I can't go to school now because I don't have a job. How am I going to pay for this? All of the stuff that was just really made it very scary for me. And so it took me about 6 months before I made the decision, and I just really want to tell you it was the best decision I ever made. I did go back to school then in September of '09, and what I learned is right from the beginning is that this program has helped me because of the real-life examples, the networking. Within my first class, Executive Success Skills, I was able to apply what I needed to do in school with real-world examples. I was encouraged by my teacher to go after and get a contracted job using the presentation that I had, and it worked out very well. And then within my next class, I was also encouraged with the leadership program to do other things. And I actually got a job as Director of Marketing and Communications for the Illinois Hospital Association. And in addition, I've had a lot of growth responsibilities added and additional promotions, et cetera, in the last 2 years. So this has been a wonderful opportunity, and I am so glad I really did it, and I pushed myself. I'm very happy.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, Valerie. And Michael, could you introduce yourself?
Valerie's really still smiling, folks. I'm Michael Mann. I put down president of telemarketing, a company I started in transition, so what better time to start a new job is being your own boss. I did win the scholarship. One of the few people did win a scholarship with Lake Forest. I'm very fortunate for that, and that's how I got into the program. Although I've always thought about getting an MBA because I always wanted to make better of myself, and education is the best thing you can do to improve yourself. I feel it's needed. As I've been interviewing with people, that's all they look for. They said they like that MBA. They can tell, being an older person, that you take pride in yourself and you really want to further yourself. And instead of being stagnant with the company, you want to be, as they say, open-minded and broader thinker. That's what's happening because now people realize that I am thinking outside the box. I've been with small companies under 20 people, but what I've been learning here is more corporations and how to be a leader and a group player. And that's my short story.
Great. Excellent. And Sherry?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sherry Weisman, and I'm Director of Transportation for American Hotel Register. I am almost halfway done with the program. I'm very excited to get to that mark, but also very sad. It's been a wonderful program. I'm just so excited to be part of it, like the other two panelists. I started last August, and being part of this program is something that I've wanted to be part of for quite some time. Not necessarily just here at Lake Forest, but into getting my MBA. But due to transferring around the country, I was not able to physically attend class, and that was a concern for me. So we had one of the instructors came to my company and did a presentation last August, the 1st of August, and I spoke to him afterwards, and he said, come and see what we've got to offer at Lake Forest. So I came the next week and heard the same presentation again. And he said, did you get it after two times of hearing the presentation? I said, I did, and I'm hooked. So within 3 weeks, I was a student at Lake Forest Graduate School. There were several things that drew me here. The first, and people will laugh at this, but was the fact that I didn't have to take the GMAT. That petrified me. I've been out of school for a number of years, and the thought of having to take a class to learn how to take the GMAT just wasn't something I was wanting to do. So through the flexibility here at Lake Forest, that's not one of the requirements. It was fantastic. The second thing that sold me on the program was the flexibility. I travel a lot for my job, and so the thought that I would not be able to miss a class, or how would I study for a test when I was in Europe, and how would I make all those things fit, they make it happen here. Everyone is a working professional, and the professors are aware of that, and they work with you. There are classes that you can make up on Saturdays, or you can do a call-in program. And now with the new addition of the online classes, I think it's just going to be a great addition to the program.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's go ahead and jump into some questions to help our listeners today get some more perspective on how to make the most of their MBA experience. Let's try to tackle the question as a team, is getting an MBA important? So specifically, you talked a little bit about your reasons for why you chose Lake Forest against other possible MBA providers. Tell me a little bit more about why you decided to pursue an MBA in the first place, why that seemed like something that would help take you to a place where you wanted to be, and I would love to potentially even hear some ideas around challenges you've been up against in your careers at the workplace recently, and how you are now better equipped to deal with them. So
I can start. This is Valerie again. You know, I've always wanted to get my MBA, but was always afraid that I wasn't, you know, with the business aspect. And I'm marketing and corporate communications my entire life, first in the hospitals and now in the hospital association world. And my background has been, like I said, more communications. But what I noticed in the last couple of years before I started, I was really wanting to do more business-oriented and having that credibility to be able to understand economics and accounting and corporate finance. And so that's what really propelled me, was that desire to have a more well-rounded background on it. And I will tell you that it definitely has opened a lot of doors, because I find myself now able to understand and talk the language that my CEO talks and the CFO talks, which really gets me a lot more credibility, and I'm able to take my core strengths, which is communications, and now meld that with the business aspect, and it's helped me grow personally and grow professionally.
great. Let me put a spin on this question a little bit for Michael. So Michael mentioned during his introduction that he came to the program as the recipient of a scholarship, and I'd like to put some more context around that for the folks on the phone. You may or may not be aware that about a year ago, Lake Forest Graduate School announced kind of a give back to the business community. We are a not-for-profit institution, and we know that a lot of companies and the individuals that work for them have gone through a lot of transitions recently, particularly in Lake County and Cook County, Illinois. And so we announced that we were going to offer to some really savvy, smart professionals who were displaced from their careers by no fault of their own the chance to compete for a scholarship into our MBA program. We ultimately offered what was called the Write Your Own Future Scholarship to 36 students, and Michael was one of them. So we know hearing about the scholarship was kind of what got your attention in the first place to apply, but scholarship or no scholarship, deciding to spend a lot of time, that's a huge commitment to get an MBA or any graduate degree. You obviously were really sort of committed to this idea that you were going to put the time and effort into juggling all of this and fitting this into your life. So tell us a little bit about your thinking on that, about what did you think that the MBA would do for you, and what is it doing for you so far?
I know when I go to newspapers, internet, wherever they look for job applicants, MBA required. And it's 3 letters, but it's very important, I found out. And I was scared because I've always wanted to better myself. And when I saw MBAs, I always thought I wanted to get one. I was not one of the best students at the College of Worcester in Ohio. Had a great time. But I was always fearful because an MBA, I thought you had to be a super smart genius. And I never was that. I did okay in school, but I was always fearful, what am I going to be expected to do? Am I taking exams constantly? Am I going to, all these things were really getting me nervous. I'm like, I'm not that good of a student. But then this opportunity came out, and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm seeing what people want to see, and I should at least go for it and do my best I can do. And actually, as I was telling our roundtable before I got here, my grades now are better than I've ever been, and my parents would be very proud of me right now if they knew how high my grades were. Because I think being in the working environment has taught me so much more, and you spend more time studying maybe than eating pizza from Domino's. And that's what happened. I feel like it was a great opportunity, and they sort of sort of pushed me. I've always thought about getting an MBA. Just happened to see the scholarship on the billboards, the radio, and a couple of people said, Michael, you should do this. I'm like, and I did. I'm so fortunate that I was one of the chosen people.
Excellent. Sherry, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I do. I was very fortunate. As I said, I started the program in August, and I was in a job that I really liked. We went through a few months of transition, and a lot of people were displaced in my department. And I was very fortunate in February to be named director of our transportation, and I strongly feel that I would not have been promoted to that position if I were not working on my MBA. Like Michael said, you see those 3 letters against a lot of jobs that are out there, but the fact that I hadn't completed but I was actively working on it made the difference, I think, for me getting that position. And Kate, something that you were talking about earlier about collaboration, being out there in the industry, it is that we're talking about walls coming down. And when we see that with our students in our classes, whether it's someone in finance or marketing, we're all here for the same reason, to better ourselves, like Michael said, but it's being recognized in the industries that we're all in.
And even if you're with a company right now and there's new jobs you can maybe interview for, you're just like someone off the street and they're looking for more and more information. So that MBA is going to give that little extra tick. I had an interview yesterday with CBS Studios, and the guy saw my MBA, and he's very impressed by someone my age wanting to further myself. And I worked internally in CBS, but I didn't have an MBA. I would be a higher candidate than they would. So you could be in transition or work with your company. Either way, that MBA is going to help you. It's not, if you already have a company, you can just slide through. That MBA is going to bring you to that next level.
And something to piggyback on that, Michael, is I know there are a number of people in my company that have an MBA, several of them from Lake Forest Graduate School, and when they find out that you're working on your MBA, it's like you've joined their club. You put yourself up on that next level. And I've got a couple of people that will stop by, oh, are you in finals? Okay, let's go get coffee. I'm bringing you coffee, and tomorrow you're studying. I get that. So it really does differentiate you from other people in your organization.
Great. So I want to build on that a little bit. So we've talked about the value of the sort of academic exercise of being in the program and the signaling mechanism that it sends to the folks that you work with or for, or folks that you would like to be working with in terms of your commitment and your breadth of knowledge. We talk a lot about at Lake Forest Graduate School about the idea of learn it today, use it tomorrow, and I think it's one of the things that makes our program very different than a lot of other programs in the Chicago marketplace, is that you don't have to wait till graduation. You don't have to wait till you put those 3 letters on your resume or your LinkedIn profile to be making a real business impact. Let's talk a little bit, aside from the signaling mechanism that people say, hey, this person is really committed and they're working on an MBA. What kind of results are you delivering at the workplace? Can you tell me a little bit, maybe share some anecdotes about projects, things that you've been doing in your actual classes that you've been able to take back to your employer or your clients, to make a real difference?
I can start. This is Valerie. One of the things, I just finished the marketing course here last semester, and in that we needed to do a marketing plan for our organization or another organization. And specifically, while I work at the Illinois Hospital Association, which is a non-for-profit trade association, there's a whole other side to the Illinois Hospital Association, which is the for-profit side, which is our for-profit businesses. And they had been operating in silos. And what I have been able to do, and is actually continuing this work, is to put together a whole marketing plan for the business areas, the different products, and bringing together and breaking down silos and working with the business managers and the change leaders. So that was something that started specifically because of that class, and our president and our chief of staff had known that I was involved in that and were very supportive of me taking what I was learning there and going above and beyond. And then I'd also just like to throw out one of the things that's really good about this is the teachers here, and I'll talk about this from the marketing perspective. They are willing to work with you even after your class is over with, because I'm taking what I did in my marketing class and now I'm taking it to a whole new level. And the teacher says, I want to help you with this. There's no, I'm just very interested in what you're doing, so let's get together, and I'm taking him up on that. So, it's really very actionable strategies that I'm getting, that I'm applying in my job today, that's really helping me.
And I'd like to add something to that, Kate, is actually during our financial accounting class, one of our projects was coming up with a problem and solving it. And so I thought, what better way? I have 5 team members. It's like adding 5 people to my staff at work. So I brought the project in. We came up with a solution. We presented it to the class, got an A on the project, and it was done. I implemented it at work, and it was very successful. So, you know, those are the type of opportunities that just are win-win for me and for my company.
And there could be another perspective. You got people who are working currently. I'm also seeing as networking. I work with inventors currently with a windshield wiper that I'm trying to get to the market. In my innovations class, our guest speaker was innovations leader at Allstate. And after class, I brought the blade in and talked to him about it. He's getting me connected to people in DuPage. I think there's an innovation group there. So it's also the networking with your class itself that can help you move maybe internally, but also externally, because I'm sure everyone there in the next 10 years will probably be at a different job on the average. So it's good to always be that networking part inside your classroom.
And I'll add something to that. This is Sherry, again, from American Hotel. I was in an economics class. In our first class, we were assigned with the task of introducing the person sitting next to us. And so I had this wonderful 5 to 10-minute conversation with this young woman. She was fantastic, got all of her information, found out she was in transition. We connected on LinkedIn. Within 3 weeks, she was working at my company. So it's really a success story for Kate as well as my company. She's fantastic. And Michael's passing his card to me right now. But that's what happens.
Real-time networking.
Success stories all the time as far as networking goes.
That's great. I think that's, I appreciate you bringing that up, Michael. The network at Lake Forest Graduate School is really vast. We're one of the largest MBA programs in the Chicago region. We have just over 8,000 MBA holders, graduates of our program. That alumni network becomes available to you the moment you enroll. In our program, we have about 800 students in the program, about 140 faculty. And those faculty, you made an interesting point, Valerie, about how they are accessible to you long beyond the several weeks you'll spend with them in a class. So they become kind of your personal board of advisors. I don't know a faculty member in our program that doesn't give out their personal email address and cell phone number to folks who would want to keep in touch. Because guess what? Those of you who are in the class, you're busy, successful working professionals too, so you are a peer to your faculty members, and they want to network with you too. So the value really goes both directions.
You don't have to be just networking once you are with Lake Forest. Keep in mind, Lake Forest actually has on LinkedIn, if you want to be or looking to be a student, that's a great place you all should probably hook up right now, because you can always go on there if you have questions, go on there right now and say, hey, and you'll get a faculty, you get administration, or you might get me on there answering you back if you have a question. So it can be networking now before you even decide to come over to Lake Forest.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a plug. We didn't tell Michael to say that. But there is, if you want to log into LinkedIn at some point and search for a group called Considering a Lake Forest MBA, that's what Michael is talking about. It's a group with other prospective students who are thinking about our program, where you can ask questions that may linger after today's webinar, and you can ask questions of our faculty, our students, our alumni about how they're really making it work. So let's talk just a little bit more about results. So we talked a little bit about the folks that you're working with, people opening doors. I loved Michael's story about getting connected with folks at Allstate and in this investors or innovators organization. What other kinds of doors has LFGSM opened for you in terms of the work you're doing and what's become possible for you since you started the program that might not have been possible before?
Well, this is Sherry from American Hotel. One thing I would like to say, and kind of piggyback on the last question as well, is as we're going through these transitions at work and the changes were all happening very quickly, I was in a leadership class, and my instructor, wonderful, wonderful working professional as well, and understood that I was going through some challenges, and I almost felt like he was my personal mentor. He would be asking me questions about what was happening at work, how I was dealing with it, and I was using a lot of what we were learning in leadership, questioning him about some things. He would email me, like you say, he gave me his phone number, and then it got to the point where we were coming into finals, and I was going through a really, really stressful time, and he came to me and he said, Sherry, you need to take another week on this paper. You've got too much on your plate at work. I'm giving you another week. And I'm the type of person that I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'll get it on time. And he goes like, no, really, you've got enough going on at work to take the extra time. So the connections between the instructors, not only what you're learning in the classroom, but you bring over into work is just phenomenal. It really is.
Well, I'll add to that, too. In terms of opening doors, one of the things that has been valuable to me is that you get the experience from a lot of other corporations. So, before, my whole career has always been in healthcare. But, you have professionals from Abbott, you have professionals from CDW and other organizations, and it just opens up a whole different world that you wouldn't have otherwise, because they're bringing their experience. And really, I've always looked at this, I feel like I've got this group that I belong to, and I started with these people, and they're wonderful human beings and professionals, and they're like my board of directors. So it definitely opens doors and possibilities that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Man, if you think about broad thinkers, that statement, here I am, sales and marketing. That's all I've ever done. I've dealt with a little bit with accounting stuff, but you have group projects, which every class has a group project at the end. I'm working with IT people. I never would talk to those guys. But now I'm starting to think what they think like, or an accountant, or you start thinking about all the different areas. So when you take it back to your job, you think, you know what, you have to be nicer to them. You do, and it's like you get more honey than you would with salt. I don't know what that statement is. But also, sure, you really want to, you get a better feeling for all the different industries, and that is a networking in one way, but it's also a better way of thinking about people and how they work, and you get more done if you figure out how everybody else's jobs are involved.
That's an interesting point that you bring up, Michael. One of my experiences, and I'll share just one story as the moderator. One of my experiences when I was a student here, I did not work at Lake Forest Graduate School at the time that I was in the program. I was working for one of the medical schools here in Chicago, Rosalind Franklin University, and that door opening idea where you wouldn't have even sort of thought of it was interesting. So I was heading up their marketing department. So I worked very closely. I wrote a lot of speeches for the presidents, and I did consumer marketing to attract students to programs like their MD program at the Chicago Medical School. But I really kind of worked kind of in a silo. I think I was seen as somebody who was a good marketer. They thought, hey, that woman knows a good brochure when she sees one, but wasn't necessarily seen as a business person, a well-rounded business person. So key decisions that were being made about finance, for example, even if they related to my department, I was not necessarily at the table for. And I found an experience in the financial accounting class, and Sherry had mentioned that class, where we were looking for a project idea. So I went to the chief operating officer of the university and said, I don't know your vice presidents and directors very well, and I don't even really know what they do. I didn't know what IT really did, and I didn't know what their business office really did. And I said, I'm working on a project, and here are the parameters. Can I help someone in your organization? And very long story short, their head of operations at their health systems, they have clinical operations, doctors' offices, stepped forward and said, we're trying to figure out whether or not it makes sense for us financially to keep having some of the services we have, things like X-ray and bone density scanning, mammogram, ultrasound. And so I brought in my classmates, which essentially became a team of free consultants for Rosalind Franklin, and we did a massive study, and in the end discovered that our health system was losing money every time we ran a test on a patient instead of sending them to the hospital instead. Based on that decision and those insights, our health system made major overhauls to how they were handling those services. There were some layoffs, unfortunately, as a result of it, so I wasn't popular for that reason. And I was offered a position, a business position outside of marketing, to be on the founding board of spinning off their health system as a subsidiary. So those types of things, I would have never thought to work with the head of their clinical operations. I had no exposure to that. So tell me a little bit more about that in terms of, what kind of relationships, people who you might never talk to or wished you could have had a relationship with at your organization or outside that the MBA program has given you entree to that conversation.
In my conversations it builds a confidence. I mean, from my standpoint, I'm not reporting anybody, but if it's interviews or if it's even networking, there's a confidence level now that I have. It's like, I can talk a game and I actually understand what I'm talking about and what they're talking about. So I think it's a big confidence factor for me, and I feel more comfortable talking to the people I'm with.
Great. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and serve up one last big question, then we're going to open it up to questions from those on the phone with us today. A lot of the people on the phone with us today might be kind of on the fence about starting their MBA. So I'd like to ask our panelists to share what advice would you like to leave with them in terms of whether these folks may become your future classmates if they start our program soon, if they're considering embarking on their MBA journey. And we also have some folks on the phone with us today who just started our program and who are new and looking for your advice about how to make this MBA experience at Lake Forest as impactful as possible. What's your best piece of advice for them?
I would say this is Valerie, I would say go ahead and make the decision and do it. And just because of everything that I have gained in this program, from the teachers, the students, it's so related to work. It was the best decision that I made for myself and personally and professionally. And so I would just say embrace everything for the students that are already enrolled in the program. Embrace all the experiences. I love the group projects, and that was something that I wasn't sure that I was going to like. But what I found is just embrace it and run with it, and it will be very worthwhile for you. And that has been my experience.
I think that's really good, Valerie. To piggyback on that, I think don't be afraid. Just do it. How many times have we heard that? Just go and do it. You'll find the time. If you've got the commitment to do it. One of the things that I found works for me as trying to figure out how many hours it's going to take to prepare for a certain assignment for a class is I've just changed my work schedule. I go in an hour early every day, and I shut my door and I read for the first hour. It's my time. I'm not supposed to be there yet. And that's gaining me 5 hours a week that I'm able to study. That's just uninterrupted time. You start carving out these little blocks of time, and you don't miss it. Do I watch every crazy TV show that I used to watch? No. I'm very selective about what I do. And it is, as Valerie said, this is the best thing, being part of this program, that I've ever done for myself, both personally and professionally. What I'm getting out from the other students in the class and learning is just, when my friends ask me, well, where are you? I'm either at home, I'm work, or I'm at Lake Forest Graduate School. And they're like, oh, okay, but it's just, they want to be part of it too. They, a couple of people have signed up because of my experience here, but don't be afraid, just do it. I can't encourage you enough.
It's pretty funny because if they would look what I wrote down on a piece of paper, I'd say just do it, and that's not a Nike ad. I guess my question for you to think to yourself, what are you waiting for? What's the hesitation? If you've been thinking about it for year after year, it's like, I wish I would have done mine a little bit earlier. I'm a little bit older now, so the longer you wait, I mean, I don't see the reason why you're hesitation. If you're really consistent, you really want to have an education MBA, there's no reason to not do it now. And they're actually changing the program a little bit, making it a little bit quicker for people with 8 weeks, which I'm sure you guys know about already. So there's no reason to have you hesitant. If you're here committed, which you are now on the phone, I would say just do it and no hesitation, because you're going to be hoeing and humming for the next year, 2, 3 years. You're going to think, why didn't I do it earlier?
Great, excellent. I think at this time we're going to go ahead and use our remaining time to take some questions from those of you on the phones. We're going to open that discussion up. Again, if you have a question that you'd like us to answer, please type your question into the question box on the right-hand side of your computer screen. We're going to go ahead and start with one here that I think is probably a pretty common question regarding family responsibilities and responsibilities outside of the workplace. So the question really is, what allows you to make it through the program successfully? How do you juggle it all? How do you keep it all in balance?
Well, my husband has really learned how to cook a great meal. I don't care if it's the same meal every night, he's cooking it. And that's the responsibility he took on. He did not have that before, but my family has bought into it. They see how much it means to me, and so they've really stepped up, and I really do appreciate that. And again, carving out those special study times that you need to make it work, you just find it. You give up small things to get a big reward.
I agree. You make the time, you find the time, and somehow you just do it. And I have some flexibility in my life right now, but I also have a very demanding job. And with everything that's going on, you just carve out the time, and you know that you're working with the teachers that will give you some flexibility, and you make it happen.
I guess I need cooking lessons because my kids don't like my cooking. So. One thing I actually talked about in my interview with the scholarship was, you talk about the family life. I have a 7- and 10-year-old. Now they see me studying. I think it actually motivates them to want to do more studying. They want to read with me on the couch. They want to do math. I mean, I might do my accounting, and they're doing their 1, 2, 3s. But I think the family gets involved. My wife, I mean, she's great on the weekends. We take the kids skating. That's fine. And the kids know it's that time for daddy to go to school at nighttime or during the afternoon. But I think that shows that my commitment might be good for their commitment as well.
Great, that's great. Let's take a couple of more questions here. We have one from Jen. It says, I have not spoken to my manager yet about the MBA. Do you have any tips for having an effective conversation with my boss? So how can we help Jen have that conversation with her boss about pursuing her MBA, helping her boss understand maybe the value of the program, the time commitment, and maybe talking to the boss a little bit about tuition reimbursement?
I was really a bit hesitant. I wasn't sure how that conversation was going to go, and very pleasantly surprised. Even our CEO came to me and was excited that I was doing this program. I think once they see that you're committed to it, the enthusiasm just really follows. They see what you're bringing to the table. They get more enthused. The way that my company works is we are reimbursed. I have to submit my grade along with I prepay, and then they reimburse me. So it's after every 10 weeks, it's like, okay, do I want to show them I got an A or a B? You know, that commitment is there as well. And they share in that success with me each time that they see that grade and ask, okay, how's it going? If I have finals and I have to leave a bit early, they're more than supportive. And as I mentioned before, I have colleagues that are understanding, hey, you're in finals, let me do this for you. So people, not only our family, but our colleagues at work are very, very supportive.
Keep in mind, a lot of times, retention rate is one of the toughest things in all industries. If they see a commitment, they're paying for you to go there, you're committing for 2, 3 years, they're like saying, I got this guy for 3 more years. And that it's important because they love you, they think you're doing a great job, you're going to better yourself, and they also get an extra bonus, an MBA. So there is the commitment level, but also retention level too. They're happy with that.
Yeah, and I'll just add, this is Valerie, that when I went to our chief of staff at where I work and said, I'm doing this, and I've involved them every step of the way, and they have now come back to me and said, okay, we want you to take this issue to your class and work on this. It's really, they're asking me about my work, and they're following through with it on me, and it just is it's been an engaging conversation, and I would encourage you to definitely talk to your boss about it because they do respect that.
Great, great. I would also add, this is Katie, would also add that I remember talking to my boss when I started the program, and one of the things I went in with, because I was afraid, well, she thinks this is going to distract me from work or it would take too much time. I brought her a list of the classes that Lake Forest offers and what the core courses were, and gave her some ideas going in while I was in the admissions process that, here's a class that I really, if I could be stronger in this area, whether it was finance or operations, here's how I think I could help the university that I was working for. And I went in and talked to her about how I thought it would be helpful, and that got her really kind of excited about it. So we're going to take one more question here before we start to wrap up. We have a question from Carol about how long does the admissions process take? So could you speak a little bit about your admissions experiences?
Sure. And this is Sherry from American Hotel. As I said, I was hadn't really made the commitment, but within 3 weeks when I said, yes, I'm going to do it, I was sitting in a classroom. So everyone was great here at Lake Forest working with me, getting my transcripts in, getting my recommendations, my meeting with the dean. Everything went very quickly. They really work around your schedules to make it happen. And it was just so seamless and so flawless. It was just an easy, easy process.
And this is Valerie. My experience was it was very fast. Again, it was in December of '08, and that I decided I wanted to pursue this, and everything went really fast. It was me who was hesitant for actually making it happen that January when I was supposed to go into the classes. But when I just, and I put everything on hold. But then when I decided to go back and really do it, it came together very quickly.
Great. Yeah, and Michael, I had a similar situation, so kind of a quick turnaround. We've got one last question, and I think I'm going to go ahead and field this question myself just in the interest of time. We have a question from Brian. I'm asking about some specific advice about how to use MBA course assignments to work in his profession. Brian's a project manager at CDW. I can say from having been in the program, project managers become very popular in the classroom because every project, as Michael mentioned, every class has a major project that you will do either in pairs or small groups. So being a project manager by profession coming into the program, you're going to have an opportunity to manage projects that may be very different from what you're doing at CDW right now, projects related to different industries. So you can either continue to play that role as project manager on some of your teams, or challenge yourself to step outside of that role and maybe let somebody else play project manager, and you can teach them some fundamentals of project management, but maybe you play the role of the finance expert. Or you, so I think there are ways that you can continue to build your own strengths as a project manager in our program, or to go ahead and open the door to teach some of those skills to some of your classmates. I think at this time we're going to go ahead in the interest of time. We know some of you may have a 1 o'clock meeting and we want to get you back to where you're headed on time. So we're going to go ahead and bring this portion of our webinar to a close. I think that we've got some great folks with us here and wanted to thank all of them. In the interest of networking, we're going to go ahead and provide you with contact information for today's panelists. They have been gracious enough to say they'd be happy to keep in touch with those of you on the phone and be a resource to you. So we will send you contact information for Michael, Valerie, and Sherry. So once again, on behalf of all of our panelists and the rest of us here at Lake Forest Graduate School, I'd like to thank you for participating in today's session. There's going to be a short questionnaire at the end of the session where you can let us know how to best follow up with you. And at this time, I'd like to go ahead and hand it back over to Sarah Monroe from the Admissions Department to walk you through your next steps.
Thanks, Kate. A great way to cut through the clutter of the MBA information about LFGSM or any other school that you might be considering is to speak directly with an admissions advisor about your specific needs, interests, and aspirations. And we can assure you that when you walk out of your interview, you'll know if getting your Lake Forest MBA is the right decision for your life and career, and if right now is the perfect time to start. Also, please make note for your calendars that our next preview event will be held on Saturday, June 2nd from 9 to 10:30 a.m. at the Lake Forest campus. For those of you who have not yet received our new 2012-2013 academic catalog, which includes details about our scheduling flexibility, specializations, and other program enhancements, you will have the opportunity to request a catalog with our survey question after you exit the webinar. Thanks again for attending, and we hope you have an enjoyable and productive rest of the day.